I wanted to race, and then I had a very bad experience, so it was really overwhelming for me.
There is facilitators taking advantage of people who are opening up and who are sharing their vulnerable selves. Yep. It gives Tantra a really bad name, and it's a shame.
So after so many years doing breathwork, doing those practices, you should not have any traumas. You should be like completely enlightened.
I think a big part of the healing can happen when we are starting to focus on bringing healing into our masculine energies and then tapping into our feminine energy.
My body was yelling at me. It was saying, stop, you don't want this. There is something going on in your life.
We'll need to dive into the darkness, the parts of us that we don't always feel comfortable with to face.
Tantra is saying, yeah, try and see and ask yourself why you need that.
Walk and talk the beauty way. So every word you say, every word you express has a frequency.
So if we have been in India for 5 years and then we go back home and then we get triggered by our parents, by our family, so maybe it's like we need to do some extra work.
And I think people pleasing comes in general from a trauma response.
Hello and welcome to the InnerCamp podcast. My name is Alexis Alcalá and I'm the founder of InnerCamp. Today I'm very lucky to be with Marjolein van Omeren. She's one of our master trainers at InnerCamp. So welcome, Marjolein. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So today we're going to talk about some interesting topics like energy work, Kundalini activation. We're going to talk about the energy realm, what is happening in the world right now with so many practices out there around energy work. So how did you start? How did you come to energy work, Marjolein?
Well, that was quite a journey. For me, the starting point was really when I had my first burnout. And that kind of like initiated me on the path of meditation, lots of family constellations, and learning more about myself, learning more about my shortcomings and my limiting beliefs. But it was all kind of like scratching on the surface. And it was only after I became a mother that I ended up in like a postnatal depression. And I really needed to dive deep and to dig deep to refine myself, to uncover myself, because I was in a really dark hole. And this is where the energy work started to come in. So it was a combination of body work and energy work, a lot of heart openings. And ultimately, I found the womb healing. And that kind of shifted everything for me. And from that moment on, the path unfolded for me. So, yeah.
Amazing. I remember my first Kundalini activation. So it was like some years ago. I didn't know I had a Kundalini activation. It was so profound, so powerful. I was able to raise so much energy. And I didn't know this was this kind of light, this kind of fire, this kind of feeling connected to something big, something huge. And I wanted to ask you about your Kundalini activation. When was your first time when you activate your Kundalini? Is it actually activated?
It is activated. But I think for a very long time, I was not aware of the fact that I had a Kundalini activation. I think the first time I experienced this was actually when I was still living in Holland. And I was in a preparation journey for a holotropic breathwork session. And there was a lot of like raising energies. And that's where I felt some energy kind of like shooting through my body, and I was not aware. I remember I was shaking, and I kind of left it there. They said, yeah, there's something moving in you. Now, with the activations that I followed and the work that I've been doing, I understand that really the activation started in that moment, and probably also caused a lot of things for me to work through before I was able to connect with it again. So yeah, that was the first time. And now I think, as we're talking about Kundalini activation, for a long time, I was actually feeling like resistant to join any kind of sessions that were relating to Kundalini activation.
And Kundalini activation can be actually very quick. Mm-hmm. And sometimes this is dangerous because people are not ready for such Kundalini activation. Kundalini activation is about awakening this powerful energy that we all have dormant inside within us. And then sometimes we are not really ready, and some people are looking for shortcuts to raise this, to activate it in a very quick way. So
Yeah.
what is your opinion about this? There's so many sessions out there looking for the activation, for a quick activation. And we also hear about experiences, not so good experiences from people saying that this was too much for them. They are feeling depressed after the Kundalini activation. They are having a bad experience. So what is your opinion? What is really happening in the world?
I think it's very dangerous to actually go into a Kundalini activation session when you are unprepared. I think we should learn to work with this energy as a way to see where we have blockages in our body. So instead of focusing on the activation, to learn to feel the energy rising and to feel like, oh, I actually feel it moving into like my solar plexus. So that means I need to do work around my solar plexus and use it as like a source of wisdom rather than to use it as kind of like a method to shoot through any kind of blockages, because that can lead to very damaging experiences in our lives.
Yes, what we call a spiritual ego, right?
Yes.
When we want to, we want a shortcut. We want to get enlightened very quickly without any preparation.
Yeah, and there's a shadow side to that. You know, it's when you're in a spiritual awakening and you're moving through these layers. It's not about feeling enlightened. It's about feeling what you really feel in your body and experiencing what the energy is for you, rather than setting a goal of enlightenment or not being triggered in your life at all. Because it is, I think, being spiritual or being energy aware means that you are aware of your triggers and you're aware of like how to deal with them.
Did you prepare yourself before your first Kundalini activation?
I did, actually. As I said, I was quite reluctant to go to a Kundalini activation session, simply because I didn't feel safe with the ones who were offering it at that time. That has nothing to do with them, but it says more about me. And then I met a person who was, I felt I could trust her. And it was also after that I experienced like my Sushumna was like unblocked. And that's when the longing to work with this energy kind of like returned. So the days prior to that session, I meditated more. I connected more with my chakras. I connected more with movement, with my body, less social media. Actually, like you would, like, how do you say that? How you would prepare for any kind of journey. When you really want to take the benefits from something, you really prepare yourself on a body, mind, and soul level.
Yeah, you were actually very lucky, because there are many people out there who went to a session and then they had like a challenging session. I remember one of my first Kundalini activations, actually, it was not so great. So I wanted to race, and then I had a very bad experience. So it was really overwhelming for me. I felt like it was beautiful during the process, but then when I finished the process, it was really hard for me to come back to the present moment, to come back to the normal, in real life. So now I understand, now that I know more about Kundalini activation, I know more about those practices, I understand the importance of, for example, being trauma-informed, about preparing the body.
Yep.
Preparation is really crucial. It's very, very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we tend to forget about that.
Marjolein, what are the secrets of energy work that people don't know out there? What do you think?
I think a lot of information can be found on social media. I think there's a lot of false information about it. But if I would say what's the most important thing to know about energy work that is not so common, or that people won't think about, is that a lot of the energy work that we're doing, for example, is being emphasized by how our minds are involved in it. So if we're doing energy work on a person and we're just kind of like moving our hands or with no intention because we're actually already looking at someone else, nothing is going to happen. But if we are attuning to that person and we are actually feeling into what we want to do, what we want to bring in, we use our mind, we use our intuition, we use the sensations that we have in our body, that's where we can bring in the change. And then the contradiction in this is that energy cannot be controlled. So we can only be the initiators, but we cannot force like, oh, now this person is going to feel that way because I'm using my mind to go in that way. So it's a little bit of a contradiction. Energy needs to flow. And we're just supporting the energy. And at the same time, we need to be focusing our mind and our intuition to what we want to bring in and what we want to like give to that energy so it starts moving.
What do you think about abuse and abuse in Tantra, in energy work, in this industry, let's say?
I think it's sad. I find it really sad to hear that there is facilitators taking advantage of people who are opening up and who are sharing their vulnerable selves. Yeah. I wish there was some kind of way that we would be able to stop that kind of abuse happening, because it is very common, unfortunately. And besides that, it gives Tantra a really bad name, and it's a shame, because there's already so many misconceptions about Tantra that are in the world.
Yeah. The thing is that you are vulnerable, so anything can happen, and those people, without probably without any training or not being trauma informed, or just taking advantage of those people, so it can be very dangerous.
Yeah,
there are many cases out there from schools, from facilitators, and we need to be very careful. What do you think you could say to people looking for Tantra or energy work? How can they choose the right person, the right school, to not suffer from abuse, to be safe? What do you think is important for them?
I think the most important thing is to do your research, to really go on your own senses. But for some people, it's challenging to feel what their intuition tells them. But if there is any kind of doubt, even if it's like a tiny little doubt, it's a no until you feel like a total yes. I would say do your research, read referrals, follow your intuition there. And the most important thing with any kind of energy work that you are joining, if you do not feel, I would say 200% safe with that person, don't do it. You have to feel absolutely safe with that human being who is guiding you.
Yeah. And something very important for us, is to be trauma informed.
Yeah.
So we know about traumas. We know about people who come, for example, with big traumas, PTSD, complex PTSD, etc. So we know how to handle those situations. And out there are not so many people that are trauma informed. And then sometimes we want overstimulation or overactivation. And these are not trauma-informed practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is when we see some students coming to our school, to InnerCamp, and saying, this was too much for me. I got too activated. I was in maybe 50, 100 sessions, and I feel the same, or I feel even worse. And then I want something that is safe. I know something that is therapeutical. It's not just about the experience, about feeling things, about seeing lights or fire or whatever. It's more about, I want something to heal myself and to have some progress. It's not like to be on the same level all the time.
Yeah.
After so many sessions.
Yeah.
And also, what do you think about lack of training? I mean, because, for example, Buddha didn't have any training, right? Or some big, very important people didn't have any proper training. Yeah. What do you think about not having a training when you facilitate energy work or those practices?
Okay, so I would never say that you need to do a training to work with energy. I think energy is available to all of us. But I do think it is important to know or to understand what you are doing as soon as you start to work with people. As soon as you start to bring healing to others and you have no idea what you're doing, it's good to become informed. And like you already said, being trauma informed, because these things are going to come up. So you'll need to have these kind of trainings, this kind of understanding, maybe not even about how energy works, but about what can happen when you are working with energy.
Yeah, I remember when I studied 12 years ago, I had just trainings, I had no experience, and I had not done so much self-work or self-healing for myself. And it was really difficult to understand or to read the energy of people, of my clients. So it was like just a method, a technique that like facilitating, but somehow I felt very disconnected from my clients. And I also realized that, yes, self-work is important. And in our trainings, you know that 50% of the training is always self-work. So you need to do many practices. If you're doing breath work, you're going to do many breathwork sessions. If you're doing body work, you're going to be touching yourself. You're going to be working with yourself a lot. And energetic work, the same. So yeah, self-work is very important to really be in the present moment and to understand the energy and what other people are bringing.
Yeah.
So how was your self-work, your self-healing journey?
Oh, the healing journey was a fast one. So the first kind of like 7-8 years of exploring was on the surface. And then because of the postnatal depression, I was literally like with my back against the wall, like there was no way out. And so I had to dive really deep. So for me, working with the womb was the big, like 180 switch, becoming super aware of my limiting beliefs and especially about like a lot of conditioning that I received from my parents, from my upbringing, from school systems, from friends. And I created like this whole, almost like an avatar about myself. That's who you're supposed to be. But of course, that didn't work out. So a lot of my self-healing was about uncovering what it is that I desire, what is it that I want, and to take those tiny steps, baby steps in the beginning, and then more brave steps later on the journey to walk the path that I'm supposed to walk. And a lot of shadow work. So it was a lot of like reflection towards myself, and I could be very judgmental about others. And there was one practice where I learned to mirror. So every judgment I made was a judgment about myself. And I think that one up till today is one that is so profound. And sometimes it takes a couple of days. Maybe you recognize this. Sometimes it takes, but now I'm not judging, but this is the fact. But if you really go a little bit deeper, then even then you see that there's some aspect in you being touched, right?
Right, completely agree. And yeah, sometimes some students ask me, so after so many years doing breath, we're doing those practices, you should not have any traumas. You should be like completely enlightened. Not at all. I'm not completely enlightened. I don't think I will be in this life. So because every time I do those practices, I discover something about myself. I would say that the big difference is that when I started, it was painful. Somehow I suffered. Somehow the fact of not being perfect made me suffer. It's like, oh, wow, I have this trauma. I have this situation. I'm not perfect. So it was really challenging. But now it's like, okay, I accept my shadows. I'm okay with whatever is coming up. I know that I have this situation. I have this trauma. I have this limiting belief. Okay, I'm going to work with that. And then maybe after months, I realized that this is still there. It's okay. So it's like a different way of seeing our shadows. And I can enjoy now the self-development journey. I was not able to really enjoy in the past when I started. Like the other day, for example, we were sending a newsletter. I sent a newsletter and then I made 2 big errors, 2 big mistakes. We sent to thousands of people. And then in the past, when I started this journey, 10, 15 years ago, I would have suffered so much. Like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. I'm not perfect. People are going to judge me. People are going to say that this is really a bad organization. And now I really didn't care. So, okay, I sent an email with a correction saying, okay, these are the right dates and I'm okay. And it's fine. It's part of the human experience, right?
Yep, absolutely. What I find interesting when I hear you talk is that I don't know about you, but my experience was definitely like this. At some point, I did work around limiting beliefs and going through shamanic practice. And I worked on not being good enough and not feeling safe. And I really thought when I came out, okay, so this theme is never going to be bothering me in my life ever again. And it took a while, but after a year or a year and a half, another layer came up and the feeling of not feeling good enough or not being good enough and not feeling safe just came back. And it was for me mind-blowing because I thought, but now, through all these practices, I released it. How is it possible that it comes back. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so things are going to come back. Things are going to come back, and then you will probably even see a bigger picture, and then it's going to be even more challenging at some point because you realize where this is coming from.
Yeah.
And it's about accepting whatever is there.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to be about suffering. So we don't need to suffer when we heal ourselves. So we can also enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Of course, there will be moments where we don't really enjoy, where we suffer, where we cry, where we yell, where we have a bad moment. But afterwards, it's like light. It's like coming back. It's like rebirthing. I remember the other day in our training last week, someone said, we shared about, okay, how do you feel after the day? Someone said, rebirth. I am reborn after this day. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, right? To be reborn. It's like, okay, I have another opportunity to live my human life. So I'm back again without thinking about the past, without judging the past, without judging the mistakes, without judging myself all the time. Because I need to be perfect, because I need this or I need that, because of the society, because my parents, I have the voice of my parents telling me how to do things, how to be.
Yeah.
So this is really great to be reborn.
Yeah, when you experience that in either Kundalini or breathwork or whatever kind of sessions or energy work you do, that's like you're on a green, like on an empty slate. Everything is like you can create it again. Your whole life is like being recreated. And there's layers of you that you don't use anymore. It's a powerful experience. Yeah.
If you are watching this podcast, I'm very sure that you would like to learn how to activate your energy in a safe way. And I have recorded a meditation, a guided meditation, where I show you a way to activate your energy that is in a safe way, that it was very helpful for me to connect to my body, to face my shadows, and to do it in a really powerful way. If you would like to receive this meditation for free, please follow us on Instagram and send us a message with the word energy, and you're going to receive this recording for free. And that is actually Tantra. Tantra is about facing shadows. It's about being okay with your desires, with your shadows, with the human experience. It's about saying, okay, I have this shadow, I have this situation in my life, this desire for example, eating a lot of like bar of chocolate or whatever I need to do. And then Tantra is not telling you don't do it. Go to a cave and then stay there and then don't have any interaction with the human beings. Tantra is saying, yeah, try and see and ask yourself why you need that, why you need this desire, why you have this shadow, where this is coming from.
Yeah.
But Tantra is also known as sexuality. And if you look for Google, you're going to find many tantric massages that are actually sexual services and sexual massages. And Tantra originally is nothing sexual. So 5% of only Tantra is sexuality. It's about sacred and conscious sexuality. But the rest, 95% of Tantra, is about practices, beautiful practices. It's meditation. It's about working with your energy. It's about connecting to yourself, connecting to a partner, connecting to the world, to the other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is something that is it easy for you to embody the tantric principles? Are you able to, on a daily basis, say, okay, I'm going to live a tantric lifestyle? Or do you need a system to remember, hey, I'm not tantric right now, or I'm not doing, or this is not right, or this is not according to this system to this belief? So how do you do to bring more tantra to your life?
I think for me, the most important aspect is to be in connection with my energy, and to constantly seek for wisdom within myself rather than going outside of myself or relying on other people or using that as kind of like the source of information. So for me, the most tantric way of living for me is to be in connection with myself and to own my own energy and to be nourishing my own energy and to there's a sentence that I always use, and it's not per se tantric, but I think it can kind of like summarize: walk and talk the beauty way. So every word you say, every word you express has a frequency. So what do you want to create? Do you want to create beauty? Do you want to create health? Do you want to create abundance? Then you choose your words that are in that way. And for me, it's about aligning my actions with my desires.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. This comes an idea to my mind, like a memory from a mentoring call we had recently with the energy team. And then there was a student saying, how can I forget to do those things in my daily life. I forget to be tantric. I forget to connect to myself. So it's really hard. And then it's like one day I go to a session and I do something for myself, but then the rest of the week I'm disconnected. I'm not connected anymore. And we were discussing about really the importance of creating rituals, of creating like small short practices so that you can connect to yourself again. You can connect to what is important for yourself. And it doesn't mean that you need to be 24/7 tantric or you need to be connecting to yourself all the time, but some like reminders.
Yeah.
Reminders to say, hey, I need this. Or I'm going to think about why I need, for example, a coffee right now. So I need a coffee because I'm feeling so tired. And then it's like I need some stimulant. I need to get activated by something external.
Yes.
So maybe when I need the coffee, it's like thinking and thinking about why do I need a coffee right now? Why do I need to drink the coffee? So maybe instead of needing a coffee and going to work, maybe I just need to meditate or to rest or to take a nap, a power nap.
Yeah, absolutely. It works that way. And I think when we're using the words in these kind of sessions or conversations like rituals, a lot of people think about a ritual as something that is very complicated. Oh, but then I need to create like an altar, and then I need to put cards, and then I need to meditate for so many minutes, and then I need to like call upon whatever I need to call upon, and which practice shall I do? But actually, a ritual can be a simple act as drinking a cup of cacao or drinking a cup of tea or enjoying with consciousness your cup of coffee, not because you need to rush, but because you like the nourishment that your coffee gives you and the warmth, and you can, you're conscious with your senses. You can feel the warmth going into your throat and into your belly, and you feel that it helps you to activate a little bit. And, so just to create moments for yourself and to do that a couple of times a day is as good as a ritual for yourself.
Like we are doing with our cup of cacao.
Exactly. We're doing this and then we drink our cacao to give us the extra warmth. Yeah. Also with that, sometimes we constrict, and maybe you want to reflect on that as well, but sometimes we can be so strict on the rituals or on our like daily things we need to do for ourselves. Like we need to do a morning meditation. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do so many asanas for yoga before we can start the day. Otherwise, what do you think about that?
No, we don't.
From a tantric perspective.
Personally, from a tantric perspective, not, because actually you are doing something that maybe you don't want to do. So imagine that you plan to wake up at 7 a.m. to have a yoga session, and then your body just wants to sleep and wants to sleep longer. And it will be not tantric to just wake up and to force yourself and to suffer. So maybe what you want is to nurture yourself just sleeping longer. Of course, you can create some like a schedule and a plan, because it might be hard for you to count to those rituals. And then if it's hard for you, a schedule can help you.
Yeah.
So I would say it depends on the person. There are people who really need the schedule.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's also about connecting to your body and listening to your body.
Exactly.
Yeah. So many people don't know how to connect to the body. Some people don't know, many people don't know how to really feel the emotions. And this is happening very often to us, right? It's like there are people who come and when we do some practices and we say, connect to a part of your body where you feel safe, where you feel love, where you feel warmth. And some people say, I don't find any place of my body where I feel warmth, where I feel safe. And then it's like, it's hard for them to feel this safety in the body. It's like they feel a completely disconnection from the body. So it's important to create probably a structure to come back slowly to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Without too much strictness and too much like force, but to follow the waves of the
Of course.
of yourself.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
about being lazy and then you don't do anything at all.
Yeah, no, because
Yeah.
today I feel like I need rest again.
Yeah, I need rest again after
Yeah.
1 week resting.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is happening? What is going on? You need to leave the comfort zone. Also in healing, we need to leave the comfort zone.
Absolutely,
In some
yeah.
practices, it's like, okay, I need to test myself. I need to see what is going on. If I get triggered, it's not only about being a bubble all the time.
It's not about always being in the high vibrational, I'm love and light, the love and light kind of like area. It's like when we're doing energy work and we want to master the energy work, we'll need to dive into the darkness, the parts of us that we don't always feel comfortable with to face. And most of the times the practices that we resist the most are the most powerful ones for us, right?
Yes, yes. And actually, Tantra is about masculine and feminine energy, right? So feminine energy would be like to be high all the time, activating the Kundalini, feeling things all the time, experiencing and experiencing. And groundness is about being in the present moment. It's about feeling your body.
Yep.
And spiritual bypassing would be example of what people do when they want to avoid the traumas, when they want to avoid the shadows, and they just want to say, no, this is because it's coming from a past life, or this is coming because of ancestral trauma, and then I don't really feel what is going on in my body, so I ignore my body. I just avoid feeling my body. So we need to be also careful about that.
Yeah, and I think when you say the word spiritual bypassing, I think a lot, it's very cool to say that, oh yeah, no, I had this experience from my past lives, or oh no, I see this from my ancestors. But I think it's important to understand that when we are seeing that, there's parts of us is resonating. So it became part of us. And it's something that we need to face in this moment. It's not just cool to say. And it's also important to know that when we're doing this kind of energy work, we don't always have to know what we're releasing. We don't always have to understand, or, yeah, it's because of a past life. Oh, it's because of my ancestors. Oh, this is the collective. Sometimes we just release what's been held in the body, and we don't have to have any kind of stories with it, because the stories has nothing to do with what is inside and what is happening with our energy.
Marjolein, haters. We receive many haters on social media talking about exorcism, talking that we are cult, saying many different things. So what do you think? Why are people leaving those hater comments on social media about energy work, about the practices we do? Sometimes they are really simple, like, for example, breath work, trauma healing. So it's like there is a lot of science background. So it's not like something hippie, let's say, or something very spiritual, mystical. It's like science. So we don't bring something mystical. So what is happening in the world?
I think it's a lot of fear that is being shown. People don't know. They're afraid of the unknown. They are afraid of seeing something that they don't understand because that was not in their upbringing. Their upbringing was very closed. And there was a lot of fear. For example, being in a religious, growing up in a religious surrounding, it's unlikely that you hear of spiritual practices like we are doing. So it makes sense that you're being programmed with that is something that is bad because it's like the unknown. I think this has been for thousands of years that way. If we go back to the times of the witches, it was weird what they were doing, but actually they were part of the healing. Mm-hmm. What the humans have as a tendency is to, what they don't know is going to be shamed. So I think if we stay in with our energy focusing on what we want to bring in, that the right people who need to hear it, they will see it and they will resonate and they get curious, and that's where our energy should go to. And the haters will always going to be there, and hopefully at some point we're planting a seed into them, that they might just open their senses and start seeing things from a different angle. But we can't help everything, can we?
Right.
Yeah.
For me, it's an opportunity to think, and are we on track?
Yeah.
Are we doing something wrong, or are we giving the impression that this is like a cult, or that is a religion, or is something different to what we actually offer? And sometimes I learn, oh, wow, okay, maybe these images, this video is maybe not right, and people get confused and they don't understand what we are offering.
Yeah.
So it can be a good way to learn. But sometimes, yeah, as you said, it's not the right people, and the right people will come to us, and this is beautiful because they will know, and it's like pushing people to do those practices, because something very interesting that happened to us in the on-site workshops is that there is someone coming to our workshops, they're having a transformative experience, it's amazing, and then they think that the whole family can benefit from those practices.
Yeah.
And then the next time we have a on-site workshop in the city, they're bringing the husband, they're bringing the kids, and they're not having a good experience. Only the same person who came is having an amazing experience, but not the rest of the family. For sure, the rest of the family was not ready for this work.
Yeah.
So sometimes we push people to do those practices when they are not ready.
I think everyone who is walking the path of like energy work or self-development, I think everyone who maybe is a little bit further on the path has made the same, I would use the word mistake, but it's not a mistake. Like we so desperately want to take those people to the things that helped us so much, but really it may not be their path, but it comes from this enthusiastic area. And I think on the long run, we are planting seeds in them. They may think it's crazy and they feel shy and they were not ready for it. On the long run, they might actually in a few years encounter a situation and they're like, they are ready because they had the first experience, although they may not have experienced as much as the woman or the man who took them in wanted them to have. It will always be there because it's our urge, it's in our hearts to let people have the same experiences. But when I look at that, and I did that as well, but when I look at it right now, it's much more about asking questions, and it's much more about like listening to what people are saying to you that can help them. If they don't want to hear your experience, don't share it. Keep it to the people who want to hear it.
Exactly.
And then you'll meet the right people where you can say, oh yeah, but I went to this breathwork session and you should come, and they resonate. But it takes time to change that.
And many people also say that those practices cannot fit into our fast modern world.
Yeah.
So you need to go to India, you need to go to some place and to be in a cave, and then 20 years, 30 years, then you will be able to be spiritual or to understand those practices.
Yeah.
So Marjolein, do you live in a cave?
I live in a cabin. Is that the same? No, I do live in nature. I'm quite far from the civilized world. I live close to a town with only 80 people in there. So it's very, very little. But I am surrounded with people, and there's a lot of people who are living with me. I don't think necessarily you need to go living in solitude, or you need to go to India or to Peru or to wherever to gain the information that you need to gain. I think there's a lot of masters and a lot of people who are very, very trained and who have done that, who are living in Europe or wherever you are in the world, and that they have the permission to bring these teachings forward. I think that is really important. Do your research, see what they have done, like how much time have they spent in the jungle or in India or wherever. But I think there's a lot of people who are able to bring the teachings forward. And I think also when you are, for example, a month in India and you are completely surrendering into the teachings, then it's easy to live that way, because the only thing you're doing is that. You do your spiritual practices, you meditate, you read books about it, whatever you need to do, and you're so full focused on that. But once you come back, the transitioning is so huge because our lives are so different here in Europe. It is like a rat race. We're here. So I think doing these practices and learning to do these practices when we are in our fast-paced life is far more important, because this is where we need to do it. So yes, it's beautiful to receive teachings from there, but ultimately you need to do it here in your current life. So I would say the best thing is to do it and practice it and bring it into practice straight away.
Yeah, I feel like some people try to escape the human experience. They don't want to, for example, solve problems with the family, with the partners, with with the people in their country, in the city. And then for them, they prefer to be in solitude as a way to escape and not to face those shadows, those problems, those triggers.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'm spiritual. I'm in India or I'm in the mountains or whatever, and I'm spiritual here. But are you also spiritual when you go back home, when you are interacting with your family? Something that I learned a long time ago is like you are really becoming more spiritual when you are okay with your family, when you go and you visit, for example, your parents, when you are with your family, and then you know that always our families, our parents can trigger something inside of us.
Yeah.
So if we have been in India for 5 years and then we go back home and then we get triggered by our parents, by our family, so maybe it's like we need to do some extra work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to go back to India then.
We need to go back to India. We need to stay there
Yeah.
at home and then see what is triggering me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the work. That's ultimately the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily we have so much access here to so many beautiful practices that are really beneficial, but we do it here where we are being triggered.
Yeah. And suffering. Or do we need to suffer? Do we need to suffer to bring healing? Do we need to suffer to transform our lives? Because
Actually,
some people think about that self-healing or those practices about crying and suffering.
yeah, there's a lot of tears being shed when you are going through your process of awakening and your process of like learning who you are. It's a lot of saying goodbye to parts of you that became so comfortable, that are such a part of you, and that's grief when we're saying goodbye. But I think, honestly, that the biggest suffering is actually before your spiritual awakening, because you're so stuck in your beliefs, you're so stuck in the world, and that's where the real suffering is. So I know that there's many sayings, healing is suffering. I would say it's not a walk in the meadow fields. Because you'll need to be like really like brutally honest with yourself if you want to walk the path, and otherwise you'll get your lessons and that might lead to suffering. But to say it is that way, it's too narrow-minded.
Yeah, completely agree. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there should be some joy, right? When we do those processes, so we should feel pleasure as well.
Absolutely.
I'm not talking about sexual pleasure. Oh, yes, but I'm talking about joy. It's about enjoying your body, your life, the human experience. Okay, I have these shadows, those traumas, but it's also about enjoying the present moment.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny you bring this up, because I when I sat down at the beginning of this year to feel in, okay, what's the energy for this year? What's going to happen? The word that came up was pleasure and joy. So it's funny that you mentioned this now. But I got a bigger message, not just for myself, but like we're being asked to go through our healing process more with pleasure and joy, and following that as the true guidance. Like, okay, what gives me joy? What does not give me joy? Or what gives me pleasure? What does not give me pleasure? And to actually choose the road constantly of the pleasure. And that may be that you encounter challenges there. You still have to do like your shadow work, but you follow the aim of having more pleasure in your life. And when you follow that, intention, energy flows where intention goes. If you have the intention to follow that pleasure, you dare to feel that pleasure, because there's often a big belief around being able to have that pleasure for ourselves, right? But if we have that as the true north, we can kind of like expand our energies completely.
Yeah. It's not about having pleasure all the time.
No.
And finding joy, and then every day you need to enjoy life and have pleasure every day, because
Absolutely.
you also have shadows and you need to do the shadow work as well.
Yeah.
And you need to understand your traumas, etc.
Yeah.
But it's like bringing more, like manifesting the pleasure, manifesting joy in your life.
Yeah, and being able to experience that, instead of always having, I need to work hard because, or I need to take care of because, or I need to do this because of. It's like, how many of the things that you have to do are really giving you the joy? So it's also about making decisions. Like, what do you really want? Where do you want to spend your energy into?
Marjolein, I know that one of the most transformative sessions at InnerCamp is the womb healing sessions, and people have transformative experiences. since I know you and have seen students having womb healing journeys. At the beginning, I was not able to believe that, and remember asking you, but people are really going to feel that much when they do this womb work? And then, wait for that, wait and check by yourself. And then it has been always really profound, very transformative.
Yeah.
What is happening with the womb? Why is it so powerful?
Yeah. It is because this energy center holds the power of our authentic expression, our authentic truth. So when we are connecting to that sense of our essence, people will experience different sensations, different ways of being. So it's almost like they're suddenly being grounded completely into their body. So imagine you have like 3 balls of energy, one in your brain, one in your heart, one in your belly, and there's 2 activated. So the one in your brain and your heart is activated, but then, you know, the body gets slightly bigger the lower you get. So you can kind of like get that into the energetic space as well. Once you ignite the fire that is in the belly area, you combine the power we have, because these centers, these balls of fire that we have, or these balls of energy that we have in our body, they function only together. So when there is one missing link, it's very challenging. And that's like the biggest link in this whole thing is the womb. So people experience, just by activating this center, that there is so much wisdom within themselves, and they feel that grounded presence, and feeling that and feeling centered is one of the key aspects to move on working with energy, or being with your energy, playing with your energy. So it's almost like a light switch is being switched on. And that's why it's so profound.
Mm-hmm. And for the ones of us who don't have a womb, we cannot join the party.
Absolutely, you can. There is a misunderstanding that the womb is the uterus. So in English, there's 2 words. The uterus is actually explaining the physical organ in the body. And the womb in English is the energetic uterus. So everyone has that, whether you still have a uterus, where you still have like a womb or not, it is still there. And so for men, for women who had like a hysterectomy, this energy center is really accessible. And having that said, for women who had a hysterectomy, connecting to their wombs is one of the most powerful things that they can experience, because in a way what happens is they lost their femininity, or at least that's very often what's being created, and then they suddenly receive that back into the body, and shifting that is profound.
Yeah, I can say that when I do some of the practices, energy work, breath work, I can sometimes connect like to the feminine collective. I can connect to this energetic womb as well. I can feel like healing the grandmothers of the world. I can heal the feminine lineage. So I can feel like this connection, this very strong connection. Does it happen also to you with the masculine energy?
It happens with me for both energies. So I don't distinguish when I'm working with the collective. I can work with the feminine collective. I can work with the masculine collective. So I prefer to say, like, let's work with collective wounding or collective trauma and release it. Mm-hmm. Basically, the way that I look at it is that we are all connected. So we are all carrying collective trauma in our body. And through those connections that we have through the roots, when we are clearing something in our bodies, we are clearing automatically our roots and the collective. So the more we do for ourselves, the better or the lighter that collective trauma gets. And to give you an understanding of how this works, maybe that's interesting. But for example, when you have a family history of like war trauma, or you have like, you feel connected with information about the war whatsoever, and a war starts somewhere, this can feel like, you can feel that in your bones, you can feel that in your senses, like in a really deep way. And it's because we are energetically connected to all of these people who have a similar kind of trauma, collective trauma in their system. Now, when we are working with it, that trauma becomes lighter.
Yeah, and there are also many practices out there that focus on feminine energy. It's only feminine energy. What do you feel about that, only working on the feminine energy?
I'm really happy that there is a lot of focus on the feminine energy. So the feminine energy, as you know, has been repressed for so many years, like hundreds and thousands of years. And that the focus has been on the feminine is a beautiful movement. But I do see that we forget the masculine energy in that space. So working only on the feminine energy is like looking at the Tower of Pisa, who is about to fall, you know, it's going to fall ultimately.
Yeah.
So, and this is how the feminine energy also works. Like the energy wants to rise, she wants to rise. But if there's no foundation, she's going to rise like halfway up and then collapse. Or so the masculine energy is really, really important to be the space holder for the feminine to rise. And I think in a lot of practices, because, I don't know, maybe out of fear or not knowing or misunderstanding the masculine energy and specifically the divine masculine energy, we don't focus on that. And I think a big part of the healing can happen when we are starting to focus on bringing healing into our masculine energies and then tapping into our feminine energy.
Do you mean that we should avoid women's circles and men's circles?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful area. I think there should be more knowledge about the importance of masculine and feminine energy being complementing to each other rather than seeing them as kind of like competitors. Like when we only focus on the feminine, we only get like a part of the power that we have inside of ourselves. When we allow these energies to unite, to work together, to create together, there is a much bigger manifestation power, intuitive power that can come through because they are co-creating rather than creating friction between each other. So please visit as many men's circles or women's circles, because that is beautiful and it can be very, very safe spaces to be in. I don't think it has anything to do with masculine or feminine energies.
One of the topics that we discuss very often with our students is about being a people pleaser. I remember when I started my own journey. So 12 years ago, I was living in Germany and I had job positions in big companies in IT, in corporate. And then I was managing many people, like budgets of like a few millions of euros. So, and I had like from outside, I had like a successful life. So everything looked perfect from outside. So like a very good car, very nice apartment, perfect relationship. So everything from outside looked perfect. And society would say, yeah, this is perfect. This is what you need to be happy. But I was really broken inside. I was not able to sleep until very late at night. I had insomnia. I started to develop different diseases, I became celiac, lactose intolerant, etc., etc. So my body was yelling at me. It was saying, stop, you don't want this. There is something going on in your life. And then I realized that I was like following the guidelines that I learned in my childhood, that I learned from the society. I tried to please or still my parents. I tried to please the society and the typical guidelines that we all learned, right, in the school. And many people who come to InnerCamp and our students, our also participants in the workshops, they also talk about pleasing people. It's really hard for them to say no. It's really hard for them to set boundaries. So one of the practices we do in the on-site workshops is about setting boundaries. It's about saying no. It's about saying yes. And this is really, for many people, it's really transformative because it's the first time they allow themselves to say no and to say yes until... It's not only about saying no, because sometimes we think that we only need to say no, but we also want to say yes, maybe yes to the life we want, to the job we want, to the relationship we want. So how about you? Because when I see you, I see a very grounded person. I see very clear boundaries. So have you always been like this? Or you had problems in the past with setting boundaries, with trying to please people?
No, I've definitely not been like this before. I was an extreme people pleaser with very, very, very poor boundaries. And I think actually becoming a mother made me realize how poor my boundaries were, because I could say no to my son and he just like looked at me and asked again, over and over again. And I think over the course of time, when I started to become more aware of my energy and more aware of like, and this was mostly related to the womb work, because that created for me that awareness, like this is my space and this is supposed to be for me and no one has the right to be in there. I choose who is in there and who is not. So reclaiming your authority over and responsibility for yourself was a very large and big process, and it didn't go like overnight. I think one of the first areas where I learned this in a very healthy way was to work with clients. So understanding like how much of their energy did I allow in, how much of the energy I actually gave away from them. And that was for me a pattern that I did, because I have quite a lot of energy. I don't need coffee or stimulants to have a lot of resources for myself. So I had the tendency, I just kind of like gave it away to others. But ultimately doing that and working more with people, it depleted me. So I think that was the big lesson that I learned. Like I can't give it away, and it's not serving them as well if I give it away, because I'm actually disempowering them. When I started to understand that, I was able to retrieve that energy and to hold it more for myself. And now I can feel within my family and within friends and relatives, I'm better at saying no and saying yes to what I want. But I still have traits of being the people pleaser. I still have it. And I think it's always going to be there. I think it's more about expressing it as well when I'm doing it, just to be honest to the other person. But most of it towards myself. And I think people pleasing comes in general from a trauma response, because we're trying to harmonize something. And most of the times that comes from our upbringing. You know, how was our family? Were you the one that needed to hold or think? It's not the way. Did you think that you needed to hold the structure of the family? Because it's not always what really happens. It's what we thought was our truth and our role. So yeah, people pleasing is a role that is very complex, because it comes from such deep rooted beliefs. But I'm glad that you see me as grounded with good boundaries. But that is a really big compliment, because it was definitely, I think, only maybe 4 or 5 years ago, absolutely the other way around.
Yeah, and also about saying yes to the life you want, saying yes to what you want to manifest, saying yes to your body.
Yeah.
So this is something that we always do in the on-set workshops. We teach people how to say yes to themselves, because they don't say yes to themselves. They say yes to everyone except for them.
Yeah.
And this is dangerous. So
I think that was interesting, just to share a little bit about what I experienced about the yes and no. And I think one of the first time I did it is not so long ago. And I realized that saying no was easy, but saying yes was more challenging.
yeah.
And then I realized there is something there, like, and that led me to the pleasure. That led me to like, can I allow pleasure? Can I allow to receive? Can I allow myself to receive what I would love to receive?
Yeah.
You know, can I receive the love from my partner? Can I receive the support from my friends? Can I really receive that? Or is there something in me that is still and saying yes to all of that? So that practice that you are describing, no and yes, has on a much bigger scale, when you have that consciousness on such a big impact.
Yeah. And the next step after saying yes is, what do you want? What do you want in life?
Yeah. And sometimes that's a question you can't answer, because you have no idea, because you never ask that to yourself. What do you want in your life?
It's really hard to understand this. Even hard to really set an intention for many people who come to the on-site workshops. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
So we ask them sometimes to share the intention with another person next to them, and they say, I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah.
I know that I need something in my life. I need that change, but I don't know what I want. I don't know what are my dreams. And something that we try to guide with, with neuro-linguistic programming and also with hypnosis in the workshops, is to identify what you want. What are your dreams? What are your fantasies?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember there was a case in one of the workshops when we were guiding this part of, identify your dreams, identify your fantasies. How do you want to see yourself in 6 months, in 1 year? There was a lady that we saw removing the ring from the finger. And this was like, oh, wow, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many people really can see what they want in their lives, and it's very clear to them, okay. So because, we are very fast, like we are running always, and we are super busy doing many different things, and we really don't understand what we want. It's like, in my case, like 12 years ago, I didn't know what I wanted. I was like working really hard to get promoted, to have a higher and higher salary, but I didn't know what I wanted in my life. When I stopped and I analyzed and tried to identify who I was, my values, what I wanted in life, everything changed in my life, for sure.
So what do you want in life?
Oh, I want to bring the holosomatic method to many people. So this is what I want to do for the next 25 years. So my target for the next 25 years is to train 100,000 people in the world. We have trained more than 2,000 until now. So this is my target, is to bring the holosomatic method to many people in the world, and to use those practices like drinking water, like doing basic stuff.
Yeah.
So this should be part of your daily life. So it's not like a luxury product where you go to a workshop and then you pay some money and then you experience life. So this should be part of your routine, of your daily life, to also experiment your body, to face your shadows, to understand yourself, and to understand your dreams.
So you're basically like setting an intention to bring a ripple of healing over the world, over this globe.
I know it's challenging. I know I need, a lot of work. It's a lot of work for the whole team, but I'm sure it's possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's possible. And we are getting so many positive results. We are getting so much positive feedback. And last year, for example, we met like more than 10,000 people in the on-site workshops, and then we are getting so much feedback. And we have also our research department checking that what we are doing is not harmful, so it's right for the people. So it's not like just some hippie ideas. So what we do is good for your health, it's good for your mental health. So it's an improvement for you.
What would you say to people that is making InnerCamp the training, the holosomatic therapies and the training so special? What makes it unique?
I think one of the things is that we are down to earth. So it's not only happy ideas,
Yeah.
Okay, this looks cool. So for example, if you come to our workshop, these 4 hours workshops is like many different practices. It looks a bit crazy because so many things are happening. People need to maybe shake, they need to dance, they need to make weird sounds. But everything has a purpose. Everything has a reason why we are doing this. Maybe it's to release traumas from the throat, from the jaw. Maybe it's to remove certain blockages out on the pelvis, etc., etc. So there is like a science behind everything we do. And we always try to bring science to what we are doing. Of course, there are practices like energy work that is about feeling, and you cannot really test, there are anyway some research, and we can already feel and we can see the energy. But many of the practices that we do, they have a lot of science behind. Mm-hmm. So we have a research department with psychologists, and also it's trauma-informed. So it's not about overactivating, it's not about overwhelming people and then they feel like, wow, and they get addicted to dopamine. Or I want to come back to this dopamine session to feel so much because of my daily life, I cannot feel so much. It's about, doing this in a therapeutical way, trauma-informed, so that you don't get overstimulated, and then it's healthy. And then you can do it by yourself, and you learn how to do it by yourself, and you don't depend on someone, on gurus, because sometimes some systems, like they create a dependency on a guru, on a master, and then you need to go back to the master and for the rest of your life. But in our system, we try in our method, we try to not create any dependency. So everything you learn, you can do it by yourself, with yourself.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I remember when you joined one of our first online breathwork editions. So you are one of our first students in breathwork. Remember? So it was like 5 years ago. And you have done most body work, energy work. So you have been part of the InnerCamp family from the very beginning, I would say. So what do you think What are the top things that make our programs so special? What do you think?
I think it's the sense of community that is really like what I felt as a student when I was coming in as a student. There was a lot of like personal touch. There was a lot of support. There was a lot of like space for self-reflection, but the assignments that were given in, they were actually read. You were getting back reflections like, oh, this person is really reading my assignments. So that personal touch, the support, and the community feeling, I think is very important. What you said earlier, like the combination. So whether you are coming from a science-based background or you're coming in from like a very more energetic perspective, the language that is being spoken is for everyone. So for me, for example, I find the scientific background really difficult to read and to memorize, but that's just an aspect. And I can relate to other information better. And for some people, that works the other way around. But it makes you like open your perspectives. And I think that's a really beautiful thing of the training. And then, of course, we are the teachers, so that's amazing as well.
You work like me in the corporate world long time ago, and then you did also the transition like me to this world and to this industry. So what is your recommendation for people who are still in the corporate world and they would like to transition to this kind of work, that would like to become facilitators of this method of breath work, body work, of Tantra energy work? So what can you tell them?
I think one of the things that really helped me was to, at some point I was working 2 jobs. So I was working as a personal trainer. That was already in the in-between, but I was working as a personal trainer and already facilitating women's circles at that time. But that field was not like earning enough. And what happened was I was kind of like shaming and being angry. Oh, this work is what I don't want to do anymore. And I only want to focus on that. But that created friction. So what was really helpful for me was to change my belief about my current job and to see it as a way to grow into facilitating and following the work that I needed to do. In a way, I was lucky because my work as a personal trainer came to full stop in the lockdown. So I had no other choice than to focus on the work that I was doing. There was no other way. And within 6 months, it was like I could support myself fully from living from women's circles, online circles. I think what is really important is to make the leap of faith when you feel in yourself it's a yes, and not to speed up the process as it's unfolding. Sometimes it takes years, like for me to really take that leap of faith to, I'm now going to focus on energy work full time. That took 4 years. And in those 4 years, a lot of like limiting beliefs came to the surface. Things changed. I added more trainings. I blended in different wisdoms. And I think patience is really important because in a world that is so fast, that is so goal-oriented, we sometimes lose ourselves in that's what we want. This is our dream. This is our goal. But then to set some kind of like time to it. And this transition is huge because we have to work through so many layers. Like going from a corporate job to energy work is going against your complete upbringing. And it's going into the beliefs you have. There's going to be resistance from other people. There's going to be resistance from inside of you. And you need to build the trust. You need to build that foundation to make the leap. So I think the biggest advice I would give or suggestion, take off the pressure and enjoy that path of liberation, and see it as path of liberation, but see it also as the path of growth. And when you are ready, you will feel a yes, and it's a very easy decision.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it happened also to me. So it was a transition. So for a few years, I was transitioning from corporate and IT to what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the natural way.
It is, but we are so focusing on this needs to be now. This is what we want,
Yeah,
and we
I
have
want-
12 months for it. But it's
I want
just
to quit my job today.
Yeah,
And then I
exactly.
want to start as a therapist tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work like this.
No, and it's like, can you trust? Can you, because that's also energy work. Can you trust that everything is being orchestrated for you when you're putting your focus and your desires, your wishes to it? That you're also daring to receive and lean back into what change is being created for you, and that doesn't always go in the speed that you want.
Yeah.
So it's cultivating trust. It's cultivating leaning into,
Yeah.
and yeah.
It is also about not waiting for the perfect moment for the future to start a training or to practice energy work or to do those practices.
Yeah.
So the moment is now, so you can really start practicing at any time.
Yeah. And doing energy work and building a business around that, it takes a lot of time to create a foundation. And that foundation is not just building a business, but that foundation is being built inside of you.
Yeah.
Because you are, in a way, your company. And so when you don't have that steady foundation, the company is going to reflect that, and your clients will kind of like feel that. So if you want to work as a healer or a practitioner, you have to give yourself that time to create this strong foundation of being able to help people, of being able to hold space, of being able of setting clear boundaries.
Amazing. Marjolein, what would you like to say to the world?
Wow, that's a big question, Alexis. I think what I would like to say to the world is trust yourself. Trust yourself. Embrace yourself. Dare to walk the path into the unknown, into the unexpected. Dare to see life as an adventure. Dare to look at the opportunities that are in front of you. And that it's not about looking back, but it's about, it's about seeking the freedom, seeking the love, seeking and embracing life as it unfolds for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for joining us today here in Marbella for this podcast.
You're welcome.
I'm very looking forward to the energy training that we're going to start tomorrow in Malaga.
Yes, me too. I'm very curious again. It's always a pleasure to be working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marjolein.